The Kev Baker Show. Seeking answers to age-old questions. Deciphering the world painted around you by the mainstream media. This is The Kev Baker Show. And now, here is your host, Kev Baker.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. A big, huge, massive, warm welcome. This 18th of November here in the UK, 17th over in America. I want to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's show. You know what, I'm so glad the weekend is out of the way. Friday comes along, and by the time Freaky Friday's finished, I'm sure Johnny and Marty would agree, the fatigue catches up on us. But then over the course of the weekend, you listen to shows like Chris Geo, followed by Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton, followed by The Hangar, and you've got 7 hours of pure class radio there. And you also had our very own Big Marty on there. And Marty, I want to welcome you onto the show tonight. And I do believe they were taking advantage of your very nice, polite English accent on there.
Oh, they was, yeah. They had me reading out all sorts.
Okay, it appears the hosts are back on here now, folks. Sorry about that, some connection issues there. Hopefully not my end, hopefully it's those pesky animals down at GCHQ. But yeah, Marty, I was saying how, having listened to you guys, and then last night you had Everard, the Geos again, I've been absolutely dying to get back on air tonight. So I hope you have too, and we've got a very special show lined up tonight, Marty, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We have Mr. Luke Edwards, who was recently on Sky News for a preparedness, survival type video, which we'll get into. Don't want to spoil too much of it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really, really looking forward to getting into this one, Marty. But before we get there, in true Kev Baker Show tradition, welcome onto the show, the one and only Whistler himself, the fans' favourite. Johnny, do us the honours and shout out the chat room.
Thanks very much, Kev. We've got 47 people in the chat just now, Kev, so thanks very much, everybody. We'll start with Naughty Boy, Angel Whisperism, Aussie Anzac, Bad Breakfast, Beer of Change, Cows and Nappies, Daft Libertas, Den Oldham, Marty, Fishtails, Flower Child, Harold 70, Ivy Nurse, myself and Kev, Kevty, Mad Martian, Mad Millie, Matt Freeman, Miss Susie Q, Nosboy, Nobody Icon, Stushy, Bondinator, Max, Osama Number, Ragnar, Jenny, Coctopus, Dr. Harry Wiener, Silverman, and a wad of anons, Kev.
Well, a big shout out to Joe Joseph or Chris Geo in the chat, I would imagine. Possibly Popeye, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, definitely one of them.
It's definitely. The Coctopi gets the best name of the night in the chat. But as Marty was saying, we have got a very special guest tonight, recently featured on Sky News, no less. And I want to welcome onto the show Mr. Luke Edwards. Luke, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks, Kev.
Excellent stuff. Now, I was surprised and refreshed to see an article just recently on Sky News, the website I love to hate, and it was concentrating on, the headline read, Preppers in a Spin Over Ebola Armageddon. Now, to the listeners out there, I was expecting to be great with the usual X-Files music and a total hit piece on one of our own. But as I'm going to show you here, it didn't quite turn out that way. And we're going to listen to the piece that Sky News done, and then we're going to get right into this with Luke and listen to the listeners out there. Having spoke to Luke for just half an hour before the show, this is going to be absolutely awesome. You do not want to go anywhere. Listen in to this.
Imagine this. Ebola has broken out in the UK. There's rioting in the streets and food is scarce. That's the scenario Luke Edwards is playing out. His YouTube video on how to survive an Ebola pandemic has received more than 15,000 hits.
I was bedded down for the night, decided to move on. Where I was staying just didn't seem secure enough.
He's what's known as a prepper, a rapidly growing community in the UK who, as the name suggests, are prepared for anything from a natural disaster to the collapse of society.
You've got your fuel for your camping stove.
Luke has spent more than £2,000 on survival gear, including a gas mask and biohazard suits for himself and his wife. He says he wants to ensure they stand the best possible chance if the worst happens.
Whether it's a lack of trust, it's maybe a lack of faith in the ability of others. I'd rather have that faith in myself to be able to deal with the things that I need to keep myself in a relative amount of comfort, and for my wife as well. So.
And Luke is by no means alone. There are thousands of preppers across the UK, alert to all different kinds of catastrophe, whether it be flooding, a terrorist attack or disease. Public health officials, however, want to make sure people are guided by facts and not fear when it comes to Ebola.
I'd like to reassure people, firstly, because we don't have any cases in this country to start with. They're in West Africa. And secondly, it is a hard disease to catch. And if you take normal precautions, you won't be catching it. It is not like the flu.
Despite these reassurances, Luke isn't taking any chances.
The beauty of these bags is once they're vacuum sealed, they stay nice and flat and can go in your bag without taking up too much room.
He has enough dry food supplies to last a few weeks at home and survival rucksacks kept in various locations if he's forced outside. He admits he's often the butt of his friends' jokes, but says if civilization does collapse, he'll have the last laugh.
And that's exactly it. Luke will have the last laugh compared to people who haven't prepared. And Luke, I want to congratulate you, man, on a really good piece that was put out there. And also fair play to the reporter, the journalist, whatever you want to call her, that works for Sky News. Fair play to her for doing a fair piece on you.
Yeah, I was quite impressed myself because obviously you're putting your trust in their hands. They came round to my house and done the filming of the interview, and they took took it away and edited it and come out with a piece that I thought was a fair assumption of it, really. So yeah, good.
Now I want to get the fear out of the way first here, Luke, and by that I mean let's have a look at the kind of scenarios that could bring about the kind of case where you need to be prepared, where this £2,000 that you state in there that you've paid for this equipment, when it's really going to be needed. So how about we actually run over some of the things that you think we need to be keeping an eye on that could be potential game changers?
It could be anything, from natural disasters to man-made or terrorist or whatever. You've got, just to name a few, overpopulation, resources running short. You've got asteroids, EMPs, extreme weather events, cyber attacks, polar shifts, computers becoming aware or being misused by rogue governments, pandemics, financial crises. I'm sure there's a few out there that I've missed as well.
I mean, even just down in England, not that long ago, we had those terrible floods. People on a local level definitely needed to be prepared for that, and we've seen how many people got caught out. Now, what's the one, I mean, they centred on Ebola. What kind of crisis do you think, if you had to put your money on one, what's the worst case scenario that you see coming right now?
Possibly, I wouldn't say the worst case scenario, but I see that maybe the most likely is just society. We're at the top of our game, have been for a couple of 100 years now. Britain and with its empire and the way America is, got its hand in everything. Well, you look back to Rome or Egypt and all these other places where they were at the top of their game. I think like an ant's nest that builds up to a certain amount of ants per hive, and then eventually it just can't sustain itself. It's gonna decline, and that would have a devastating effect on a majority of people, not everyone. Certainly, the working class and the likes of myself and yourselves would probably be put out by something like that, and just preparing just to have even a few months supply of food at home should you either lose your job even, and just to have to fall back on it is a start. There are other things like the thing that really got me onto prepping, I guess, was Hurricane Katrina, and within a couple of days a big storm swept in and devastated the lives of thousands of people, and law and order was definitely lost there with police ransacking houses and looting and disarming people that were in a position to look after themselves, and that's what probably woke me up to this, I think.
Well, look, I think if it wasn't for the preppers during Katrina, a lot of people would have been in a lot of trouble, because FEMA even ran out of water. They ran out of everything. There was as much use as an ashtray and a motorbike when it came to it.
It's a bit of an irony. I think there's so much water surrounding everyone, yet they had no water to give people. But that's what I mentioned in the video, is a lack of faith in the agencies that are there designed to help you in situations. Well, I think they have their limitations as well. That they might have the ability to help a small area or a few people, but when it comes to thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people, there's no agency out there, that's even the army, that's going to be able to cope with that.
And in this day and age, the New World Order as it is, they're trying to make us reliant on government for everything, Luke. But that is where preparedness becomes absolutely vital. Because if you look at government's track records, when do they ever get anything right? That should be reason enough for people to prepare. So I want you to speak to all of us now as if we're total beginners. We've just come to you. We've realised the brown stuff is about to hit the fan a couple of months down the road. We've got a couple of grand available. How do we prepare? What do we get? What do we buy? Where do we start, Luke?
I don't even think, to be honest, you need a couple of grand. I've spent a couple of grand over the last few years, but some of it on things that I'll probably never use. I think your essentials are, your first line of defence is to bug in. It'd be to stay at your home. That's where all your creature comforts are. You can have lots of tinned food and supplies there that you couldn't necessarily carry out with you. You don't have to spend a lot of money on food. You could probably go out and spend a couple of £100 on rice and beans and various things to supplement your food, and maybe an air rifle to bag the odd pigeon or rabbit in your area. That'll give you a food supply, a good water filter. I use a good water filter, cost me about £100. You could quite easily filter sort of dirty water that you collected from outside, rainwater and things like that, and that'll keep you going for a good period. Water is essential, more than food, to be honest. And if you do need to hit the road and get out there, you'd want like a reasonable price rucksack. I'm sure you can get one for about 25, 30, 40 quid on eBay. And then just some water filtration or water purification pills, just a good knife, maybe an axe, some dry clothes, and tarp or some kind of shelter. And then just bits like that, really. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money, but your essentials. If you look on my video, I've actually listed everything that's in my bag, and I reckon just in that 3-day bag probably costs about 200 quid. So that keep you going, at least give you a chance of getting out of town and to somewhere of maybe a bit more secure.
Yeah, I like some of the videos you've got up on your channel. People should go and check them out. I think your YouTube channel name is XBOMax, is it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah. XBOWMAX, XBOMax.
Yeah, you've got some good videos showing you how to build shelters and, get fires going and just basic stuff, really, that most of us don't have a clue to do, but it's you need to know, don't you, in those sort of situations.
Yeah, there's people out there on YouTube that done some fantastic videos, and they're far more advanced than myself. But I think I'm up to a certain standard that I've increased my odds of survival. Whether I'm no Bear Grylls, but I'd give it a bloody good go.
Yeah, every little helps, I say.
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah, of course.
What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop this in the chat for the listeners, Johnny or Marty.
Yeah.
If you want to take this.
I was just going to say, you don't have to have plenty of money to even buy an extra bag of rice when you're buying your groceries or something like that each week to start you off. Do you know what I mean? There's loads of things that you can do. You can pick loads of things up in like the Army and Navy stores now as well. So there's a lot of places that you can go to get this stuff that you don't have to spend a small fortune.
20p noodles taste absolutely like a 5-star meal when you're hungry. So as cheap as that.
And you were saying, Luke, about stocking up from things like pound shops and stuff, or what you call dollar stores, in the States, getting cheaper sort of products, candy bars, stuff like that. Stuff you can eat over time and then restock, so you're not actually wasting it.
That's it. Yeah, you've got to be fairly organised because it's easy to buy a load of stuff and then just leave it sat there, and then 6 months later, it's not used. Obviously, try and find the longest shelf life. But things like rice and that, I just use the big tubs. You get like whey powder in for weight training, sort of bodybuilding powder. You get the big tubs. And they stack up nicely as well, don't take a lot of room, and then just fill them up with tins of corned beef, which lasts, 10 years, bags of rice, and then every sort of 4 or 5 months, take the rice that you've just bought from the shop and swap it for the ones that are in there, and just rotate your stuff so don't go to waste.
And is there a bug out plan as well, Luke? Do you have any tips on the bugging out if, say, the zombie apocalypse happens, the hordes are coming for your house, it's time to go? What should you have prepared first beforehand?
Well, it's a tricky one, really, because I don't think you can actually plan for any specific situation. I think if you focus too much on one thing, that you're going to take your eye off the ball, and when it comes, you won't be prepared for it. So I think more than anything, it's just get out there, learn skills, learn there's plenty of prepper, say, vids that you can learn online. There are events. There's one in beginning of December. It's I think they're looking for 250 preppers to meet at a place, I think it's Delamere Forest, and you go there and there'll be hundreds of people there that are more than adequate to give you tips on how to do your prepping and survival techniques. Myself, I've got my eye on a location that I'd go, should the stuff hit the fan. It's about 100 miles from where I live, because I'm pretty much right by London, which would be the last place you'd want to be in a nationwide crisis. How I'd get there, who knows, to be honest. If I can't drive, then I guess you're on foot, and to do 100 miles on foot is going to take you quite a while, and a lot of risks involved in getting there, but those risks may be worth it more than staying put on the edge of London.
Yeah, it's like that in Glasgow here as well, Luke, because my partner's 58, and there's no way that I'm going to make her walk from here to the campuses, so I will definitely be bugging in.
Well, if you have to bug in, I think that your first thing that you'd want to do is, it's all well and good having resources at home, but if you're bugging in and people know you've got resources, well, obviously they're going to want those resources, aren't they? So, I think you should maybe involve the community, pool your resources, knock on your neighbours, convince them that you're better working as a team. There's safety in numbers. At the end of the day, I think it was Tom from the Times that he done an article on me the other week, and he was pushing, like, how are you going to defend yourself? How like I've got some sort of weaponry system that's going to fend off 100 people trying to maraud down the street and take my resources. And I was like, you simply cannot defend against that. Your best bet is to involve your local community, and you look out for each other, and say, you stand together or divide you fall.
And
I would think that would probably have to be your first priority in a city anyway, is to get as many people as you can to defend each other.
Well, John, Marty, how many times have we really said this on the show? And look, you totally nailed it there. Community. We need to step across the landing if you live in kind of not a high rise but a tenement flat like me. Knock on the door, actually introduce yourself. Doesn't matter how much money you have or haven't got in preparing then, because you've made a human connection. Somebody who can actually help you with abilities they've got, and you know what, you'll be able to help them as well. And it's forming that team. I feel that is really as important as any equipment you could have, Luke.
Spot on, Kev. Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself, mate.
Absolutely, and just, it's good to build a community and get trust going, but never let your guard down, because hungry people do funny things,
Yeah, and remember, and steal as many cows as you can.
Yeah.
You just never know. I mean, there's so many possibilities for these kinds of scenarios. It doesn't hurt to be prepared, I think. I think it's the people that have never really looked into it that would freak out and wouldn't have a clue, So
I think within, if there was such a situation where it's either a global or a national mega crisis, I think the first thing would be there'd be a lot of infighting, people just trying to look out for themselves and take from others and live on a day-to-day basis. But I think it's just a human instinct and maybe the human nature to eventually overcome that and realize that there is only one way, and that's to join forces and find a common enemy, which is the body, whatever that has instigated or brought about the situation. So all being well, people will use their heads more than their sort of their fists as such.
And look, I see one of your comrades in the chat, Max. A big shout out to Max. Good to see you in here tonight. But
fantastic.
I've actually lost my train of thought there now. I hate when that happens.
I think Max might be the guy that he's my bushcraft guru. I didn't know he'd be on listening tonight, but good man. So he's the guy that he's taught me a lot. When it comes to outdoors, and he's the type of guy you'd really want around in a crisis.
Well, I've just remembered where I was going now. Yeah, Max is obviously into this preparedness and prepping and stuff. But how have your other friends been? Look, have they been receptive and warm to what you do?
I get teased all the time, and obviously they knew I was coming on here tonight, and so whoa, big conspiracy, and everyone's taking the mick and that, but you've got to rise above that. One-on-one, virtually all these people would have a chat with you and have input to and ask you questions and show an interest, but obviously they can't lose face when there's a pack mentality. They if one takes the mick, the others have got to follow suit as well. So.
Do you know, the thing is, the irony of that is that you're being ridiculed by the very people who are, by definition, preppers themselves, because they've got a spare tyre in their car, they've got the spare can of gas, do you know what I mean? They've got everything preparing for something going wrong, and yet they don't ever see the bigger picture, do you know what I mean? Because tomorrow, all our electricity could be gone in the blink of an eye, and yet no one's even thought about it.
And this is some of the stuff we've been warned about for the UK just this winter that we're going into now. We've been threatened with brownouts, possibly rolling blackouts because of a, air quotes, perceived energy shortage. Go and work that one out. That will all be used to install sensors in our homes so that it will switch off appliances at certain times of days. But some of the scenarios that Luke painted tonight, they all could come real at the blink of an eye. And as Johnny Whistles rightly said as well, just down to your electricity going out. It just makes common sense to prepare. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And as we used to say in the army, prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. And you know what? It might just keep you alive. Now, that's almost the first half up, folks. And in the second half, we're going to be getting Luke to take us into some woo, as we call it here, on KBS. We're going to be getting into some geopolitical news as well, get Luke's take on that. You don't want to miss this guy. Seems a really, really intelligent guy, and you're going to want to hear what he has to say. Now, straight after this show, Joe Joseph, he's taking a night off tonight. He's a bit poorly with the cold. But right after that, it's David Whitehead with The Truth Warrior. Stay tuned for that, folks. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back after these short messages. If they come on, of course, because we're probably out of time now with that cut off at the start, Johnny Whistles.
I forgot about that, Kev.
That's true, yeah. Actually, we go a little bit longer, so.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, folks. What apt music to bring us back in on a night we're talking about preparedness, collapse. That's certainly one thing that is inevitable in the rigged system that we live. Now, before we get back into it, a few announcements. Let's get this out the way, the admin out of the way. Tomorrow night, first half of the show, we're going to be joined by Ukraine boy, Alexander, and Nano Girl. And then, in the second half of the show, and I still can't quite believe I'm saying this, but myself and Johnny Whistles earlier on tonight were lucky enough to do a pre-recorded interview with none other than the Trends forecaster himself from the Trends Journal, Mr. Gerald Celente. But it doesn't stop there this week, folks. On Wednesday night, we've got a guest coming up called James Swagger, and we're going to be talking about megalithic sites, ancient cultures, rituals, all things woo. And on Thursday, we've got Andy of Andology back on. And on Friday, it would not be a week on TFR without the one and only. It's right up there with the hanger, folks. It is the Freaky Friday. What a week to look forward to, Marty. Are you looking forward to this one?
Absolutely.
And what a way to start the week with Luke. Hasn't this been brilliant?
Yeah, you know, we had a little bit of a chat yesterday, make sure his Skype was coming through okay and stuff. And I just knew it'd be a great show, and I can't wait for this next bit.
Oh, this is the bit that, I mean, preparedness, yes, vital, absolutely crucial information, but I am the woo master, and I want to now talk about a certain video. I need to take you back a while here, Luke. We need to fire up the flux capacitor. We need to go back about 10 years, and I want you to describe to the listeners out there a certain video that you shot.
Right, well, yeah, just 10 years ago in June, I was at a mate's barbecue one Saturday afternoon, and my friend, his wife, as she walked out the door, spotted something in the sky. So we all started watching, and then two military planes flew literally right over our heads and then done a flyby right past it. So, very intrigued in what was up there. I fortunately had a video camera in my car, so I ran to my car, came back, started filming, and the battery lasted for about 6 minutes, so I managed to capture quite an intriguing bit of footage.
Yeah, it really is, guys. What's it actually named as over on YouTube?
I think it's Cigar UFO London, or maybe Hemel Hempstead, which is where it's filmed. So, it's...
Whoa, hang on a minute. Cigar-shaped UFOs, London. Tell me more, man. What's happening here? Come on.
Well, it's the video itself is it's nice clear daylight. It was there's a few little clouds in the sky which give you a nice sort of judgment of distance of where this thing was. And at one point, if anyone does actually look at the video, if you go to 2 minutes 20 and study closely the next 30 seconds, you'll see the rotating craft. It's like a cigar sort of spiral shaped craft is rotating around, and it appears to get the cloud to start forming in a spiral itself, and it kind of it seems to suck in a large portion of cloud within 30 seconds. We're talking a few football fields worth of cloud do get seem to vanish into it within about 30 seconds. So yeah, quite unique.
So would you say it's almost as if it's absorbing the clouds almost?
Well, obviously, I've pondered this, many times. I must say I didn't spot it when I first watched it, and I watched the video back maybe 100 times. When I put it onto YouTube, I think back in 2007, I watched it many times. And it wasn't until someone actually pointed out that it was doing this that I was sort of quite shocked. As to what it's doing, maybe it runs on H2O. Maybe its engines use condensation out the air. Maybe it's terraforming. Maybe it's doing some kind of cloud experiments. I don't know what it's doing, but it does seem to be interacting with the cloud around it.
Yeah, and you can tell that there's no editing there. It is a genuine video of all the years I've been watching them. Seems to be as real as they come. Now, I had a little look back to 2004, and you wasn't the only one, Luke, who actually spotted one. There was a cigar-shaped UFO spotted in broad daylight over Los Angeles, another one in Georgia in the same year, one on the Woodlawn Cemetery in Saskatoon, July 10, 2004. You had one seen in the Netherlands, again, in October 2004, and then it is reported that the Portuguese military fired on a cigar-shaped UFO on May the 31st, 2004. So there is a lot of stories out there that could back up your sighting.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I've looked at a few over the years. Who knows? I mean, I've often speculated myself. It's just pure speculation. I really don't know. But, maybe it's some kind of military craft. The military seemed to be aware of it, as soon as we'd seen it. How long it had been there before, I don't know. But so the two military craft flew right past it. So they had it in their sights. They weren't fighters or anything. They were like mid-range planes. I'm not entirely sure what model they were, but they were in formation and done a flyby right past it. So it obviously been either reported or they were previously aware of it to be there anyway.
I watched the video, Luke, and I was really impressed, man. That is an amazing bit of footage, but it also gives us a lot of credence to what Gary McKinnon said as well when he was talking about some of the things that he saw when he hacked into NASA's computers, when he was talking about things that were cigar-shaped and there was no joints anywhere at all on it.
Yeah, whether they're aliens, I don't know. I mean, that's it's a whole different sort of topic. Whether there's people are actually travelling from great distances. I've got a belief with UFOs that the actual the how UFOs look seems to have changed from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. The actual shape of them does seem to have changed from what would be almost lampshade looking machinery to slick, cylindrical and cigar type shaped and even triangular craft. So
the thing is, these things could even be ours because we don't know what they've got either.
Yeah, well, I think as cars have changed in those times, if the UFO sightings have also changed, it would suggest to me that they are sort of earthbound machinery that are probably secret military craft more than I'm not saying that there aren't UFOs out there that are alien craft. They might well be. But these ones, if they've changed their appearance over years, the technology is obviously developing, and if it was aliens from a million light years away, their technology would have plateaued a long time ago and wouldn't need to change on a decade sort of basis.
And look, you've even got a friend who may or may not have seen a really top secret plane named the Aurora.
Yeah, that was 10 years or 11 years before that. That was back in '93. He was in his garage working on a car and then heard a double clap, which would be a supersonic entry into the atmosphere. He run outside and heard like forgive me for the sound, but it was kind of a whoa, 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 like a pulsing sound across the sky, panned from right to left in his ears. Anyway, he ran around the building and looked over the field, and up in the sky you could see a contrail that was the entire length of the sky, coming in from an angle up from the right and then panned out all the way across the horizon to the left, which is considerable amount of distance. This noise only lasted a few seconds, and the contrail from end to end was all intact, which would suggest that the contrail itself was made within a very short period of time, because if anyone knows, other than chemtrails, but if you look at standard formation contrails, they disperse quite quickly, and this was like a donuts on a rope formation, which is often attributed to a pulse detonation engine, where there's controlled explosions in the exhaust which punch the vehicle along as opposed to a continuous thrust. And so he grabbed his camera and filmed the entire length of the contrail and watched it slowly disperse over the next sort of 5 minutes or so. Which in fact contacted Air Aviation Defence Weekly, which is a magazine, and they said they wouldn't run the story, and he's probably best keeping it to himself.
And look, I don't know if you share this opinion or not, but I believe when we see things like NASA, SpaceX, Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, that's almost the public space program. But at the same time, I honestly believe, and I'm glad Johnny brought up Gary McKinnon, because I feel his evidence supports this. I do believe that there is some parallel space program going on, and although the amount of crafts that may be coming here are probably 5-10% of the sightings, I do believe that we are making journeys at least out further than what we are being told. What would you think to that? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, in defence of the governmental, they wouldn't necessarily play their full hand to the public. They have the whole left-right paradigm of who's and
a lot of them wouldn't even know, look, just through compartmentalisation. They would get a company up in Scotland here to make one cog. They'd get somebody down in London to make some kind of rubber seal for that. You string it all together and you've got this new pulse engine that you were talking about, but none of these individuals can ever know what they were actually a part of.
No, that's right. Yeah, so one people's making the switches, the other's making the dials, the other's making the seats, the other's making the wings. It's it is very compartmentalised, and I studied UFOs for years. I'm glad I had the fortune of being into alternative topics before the internet came along, because a lot of people seem to think that everything now that is either conspiracy or whatever is purely related to the internet. But I date back a few years before the internet, and I looked at books and magazines and videos and articles where people sort of would do these these articles, and they had nothing to do with the internet or any kind of sort of modern conspiracy since 9/11. Everyone seems to think it started there, but these sort of government dark government agencies or whatever seem to go way back, and have been around certainly all through modern history.
And these dark government agencies, I like how you put that, they've certainly been doing their own preparedness to the tune of trillions when you actually think about it. Think of all the deep underground military bases. Now, I've just been listening to a broadcast with, it was Clyde Lewis and I believe Dr. Richard Sauder. Now, they were talking about the underground bases in America. Now, I've not really researched if there's too many in the UK, Luke. Is there any over here, or is it just mainly America that we see that going on?
Well, we've had nuclear bunkers over in Britain since the Cold War era, so undoubtedly they haven't all been converted into flats or apartments. I'm sure there's some that have been expanded. If they've got the technology in the States, they've got the technology over here. So,
well, I've always said, do not move into one of these old missile silos, because what if the Soviets, the Russians, the big scary Putin army are still playing with an old map? They'll think there's a nuke in there. It's going to be one of the first places they take out, Marty.
Yeah. For people wanting to go and check out some of these sites around the UK, I can suggest a really good site, and it's called 28dayslater.co.uk, and it's actually a forums-based site, and there's various explorers all over the UK visiting disused and shut down military bases, and also lots of underground sites, bunkers, caves used, from back in the World Wars and stuff. All sorts of interesting places that you wouldn't even think existed right here in Britain. It's amazing, and there's quite a lot of people active doing this. It's quite a busy site.
That sounds absolutely fascinating, to be honest with you. I think it's something we should all be looking into. Whistles, have you ever heard of anything up here remotely like that? I mean, I certainly haven't. I'm not from the Central Belt, but I can't think of anything up the Highlands that would kind of even compare with the stuff we see in America.
No, Kev. We have people here that don't even think they have a sun. Do you know what I mean? So, no, there's nothing here like that, Kev. There is people investigating this stuff out there, but it's not really that big when it comes to it, when you really get into the serious stuff.
Okay, and so shifting topics a little bit, Luke. let's have a look at what is going on the bigger geopolitical picture right now.
Interesting, yeah.
Let's start with, first of all, since this is how you shot to fame on Sky News, sorry, I'm just ribbing you. Ebola. What's your take on Ebola, man? Is it something we really need to look out for, or is it totally overhyped and there's going to be a whole lot of money made off the back of it?
Oh, there's always a lot of money made off it. I mean, everyone remembers the swine flu so-called pandemic that pitted out to nothing, and I think we spent something like 50 billion on vaccines, most of which were palmed off to a third world country because no one wanted them over here.
Yeah, then, so what else will we pressure Luke on whistles, Marty? How about ISIS? Are ISIS lurking around every corner, like David Cameron would love us to believe? Do you think we're going to move into Syria? What's your take on all that?
I think Syria is a very sad situation. I've seen some things over there that broke my heart, and no country should be forced into these kind of situations where they're at war with several different types of controlled forces, each having their own agenda, but controlled by the same puppet. By and large, it's whether they attack Britain or not is down to whether the handlers want that to be done at whatever time, maybe like 7/7 or whatever it be. It depends on their next chess move.
The minute the alternative media start winning, Johnny, and we start winning enough minds, that's the most dangerous moment. They're backed into the corner and they need to reiterate whatever point they're trying to make. And that's what worries me right now, because I still see a lot of people not buying into the crap that they're telling us about ISIS.
No. It's the same with Ukraine even, Kevin. But we've got Obama, we've got the Australian president, we've got everybody badgering Putin about Ukraine. How many countries is America in just now?
Exactly, John. Exactly. So that's a good actual question for Luke. Your take on Vladimir Putin, Luke?
I've known a few Russians in my time, and our drummer was Russian. A mate of mine I worked with was Russian. Fantastic people, very conscientious, hardworking, adaptable. I've got no problems with any nation.
There we go. That's us back, folks. Really, really, really sorry about that. My utmost apologies, folks. Luke, apologise for that. There's obviously some kind of problem at the network end. I'm hoping it's not at our end, because we all seem to stay connected when it got cut off. But yeah, we were talking there about Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, obviously GCHQ didn't like the complimentary words I was saying.
Either that or Kremlin, because if you ever follow my YouTube channel, you'll see that I'm often accused of being red, Kev.
Oh, right, fantastic. Yeah. No, I did say that, I do think that you can't have a global chess game without two sides, and I think overall I'd say that every country is playing to the plan of the New World Order. That they you can't be seen to just have one side in anything nowadays. You have to have your left-right paradigm, and Russia on one side, America the other. But eventually, I think the goal will be a sort of a one world government, and they'll all have their part to play in bringing that about.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you guys seen, but Cameron 2 days ago reportedly saying out of the Times of Israel that there's a comparison between Russia and Nazi Germany, and you've just really got to question the narrative there coming out of Israel, who are also saying at the same time, again repeating the statement that ISIS can be defeated, however Iran with nuclear bombs is a different story.
Well, they should know about ISIS, Marty, shouldn't they? They spend enough time treating them and arming them up on the Golan Heights. They probably know everything about them.
Yeah. But yeah, same narrative going on through the media with that scenario for several years now. But I'm just wondering when, Satan Yahoo will eventually drop the bomb, so to speak.
Well, you see, I've thought about this, Marty, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it with old Obola or Obama-Nokio in the White House, because under them, for whatever reason, it's probably just pure theatre as well. It almost seems to me as if there's been not a distancing, but a kind of chilling in relations. Would it be fair to say that?
Absolutely.
But again, probably all theatre, Marty, and maybe they're waiting for Italy herself. What a perfect cohort for Netanyahu to get in there to start World War III.
Well,
Yeah.
Hillary would do that at the drop of a hat, because she is an absolute psychopath, that woman.
Hillary Clinton or Hillary Clinton, both work, Marty. I seen you wanting to jump in there, man.
Yeah, I know. A few people that we spoke to recently was more saying that it'd probably be Jeb Bush that wins, but I'm with Johnny on this one. You know, I'm thinking equal rights and all that. You know, it's going to be a woman, maybe.
Yeah,
And the listeners really need to tune in tomorrow night to get Gerald Salente's take on just that. We were asking him about that tonight, Marty, and what he had to say on the whole matter is really, really interesting. Now, look, we're almost coming up to the end, but before we go, we're seeing now in Missouri the Ferguson riots, obviously, that happened before, after the Michael Brown killing. We're now hearing that the governor over in Missouri has declared a state of emergency prior to the verdict being read out. Now, and since we've gone on air, this may have changed. The verdict may be in, but I see that being fueled whatever way the verdict goes, and there's going to be some kind of riots over there. If nothing else, what they're going to do is they're going to make the local police look absolutely stupid. They'll have the agent provocateurs stirring up the crowd, and all so that they can justify federalising the police there and rolling in their big tanks and all this gear that they've been given that has come back from the Iraq war that didn't go to ISIS. Is that something that we need to be watching right now, especially for our listeners in the US?
Well, we've seen how the Boston bombings with just two young lads brought about half a city in lockdown. So riots that are being sort of played out and manipulated to create divisions between people. The media love all that, and we've seen as it happened last time when they were firing tear gas and rubber bullets into the press. Not just rioters, peaceful press that were just stood there. It's a cauldron, a recipe for disaster, really.
And when you look at the US, I mean, the militarization of their police, it really is. It's utterly ridiculous. And at the same time, we've got the UN treaty about to come in on Christmas Eve, a lovely Christmas present, which basically says that the guns must go. Now, being a prepper in the UK, I'd like you to speak to the American people out there about their need, or at least what I feel is their need to keep a hold of their guns, unlike us Brits.
Well, funny enough, I've done a video on the gun control in America, one that Piers Morgan, when he was mouthing off over there, trying to put his opinions across to somewhere that he's not from, and I keep hold of the guns. Do not let them go. Whatever happens, that is your passage to freedom. And no one wants to fire a shot in anger, but just the threat of having people that can sort of have their own control of their own future is about the only thing that's possibly holding back America going all out martial law and just ruining the country. And before you know it, they will just be in lockdown, really.
Well, that's almost us there, folks. And before I hand over to Johnny and Marty to thank you, I want to thank you, Luke. Hopefully you'll be able to come on again in the future sometime. You've been an absolutely brilliant guest. And kudos to you for actually coming out on the other side of a Sky interview, looking all right.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, it's a first time I've seen them portray us in a good light, and hopefully they'll do so in future. So thanks very much for having me on, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's been pleasure's been all ours. Thanks very much. Sorry, Marty.
No, thanks very much, Luke. Like Johnny said, it's been a pleasure, and we hope you come back on again soon and maybe dive into what's happening.
Yeah, look forward to that.
Definitely, and all the listeners will be looking forward to that as well. Don't forget, folks, coming up, we've got a rebro from Joe Joseph, and then straight after that, we have David Whitehead, Truth Warrior. We'll be back tomorrow night with the one and only Nano Girl, Alexander from Kiev, and Mr. Gerald Salenti. You can't ask for much more than that. But if you are, we've also got James Swagger coming on Wednesday. So it's just all going on here on TFR, your favourite station. And I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 1,000,000 times, folks. Wherever you are, make it TFR.
Didn't touch that dial.
Peace.
However, want to make sure people are guided by facts and not fear when it comes to Ebola.
I'd like to reassure people, firstly, because we don't have any cases in this country to start with. They're in West Africa. And secondly, it is a hard disease to catch. And if you take normal precautions, you won't be catching it. It is not like the flu.
Despite these reassurances, Luke isn't taking any chances.
The beauty of these bags is once they're vacuum sealed, they stay nice and flat and can go in your bag without taking up too much room.
He has enough dry food supplies to last a few weeks at home and survival rucksacks kept in various locations if he's forced outside. He admits he's often the butt of his friends' jokes, but says if civilization does collapse, he'll have the last laugh.
And that's exactly it. Luke will have the last laugh compared to people who haven't prepared. And Luke, I want to congratulate you, man, on a really good piece that was put out there. And also fair play to the reporter, the journalist, whatever you want to call her, that works for Sky News. Fair play to her for doing a fair piece on you.
Yeah, I was quite impressed myself because obviously you're putting your trust in their hands. They came round to my house and done the filming of the interview, and they took took it away and edited it and come out with a piece that I thought was a fair assumption of it, really. So yeah, good.
Now I want to get the fear out of the way first here, Luke, and by that I mean let's have a look at the kind of scenarios that could bring about the kind of case where you need to be prepared, where this £2,000 that you state in there that you've paid for this equipment, when it's really going to be needed. So how about we actually run over some of the things that you think we need to be keeping an eye on?
This is the Kev Baker Show. Seeking answers to age-old questions, deciphering the world painted around you by the mainstream media. This is the Kev Baker Show. And now, here is your host, Kev Baker.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. A big, huge, massive warm welcome. This 18th of November here in the UK, 17th over in America. I want to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's show. You know what, I'm so glad the weekend is out of the way. Friday comes along, and by the time Freaky Friday's finished, I'm sure Johnny and Marty would agree, the fatigue catches up on us. But then over the course of the weekend, you listen to shows like Chris Geo, followed by Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton, followed by The Hanger, and you've got 7 hours of pure class radio there. And you also had our very own Big Marty on there. And Marty, want to welcome you onto the show tonight. And I do believe they were taking advantage of your very nice, polite English accent on there.
Oh, they was, yeah. They had me reading out all sorts.
Okay, it appears the hosts are back on here now, folks. Sorry about that, some connection issues there. Hopefully not my end, hopefully it's those pesky animals down at GCHQ. But yeah, Marty, I was saying how, having listened to you guys, and then last night you had Everard, the Geos again, I've been absolutely dying to get back on air tonight. So I hope you have too, and we've got a very special show lined up tonight, Marty, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We have Mr.
The listeners out there, I was expecting to be great with the usual X-Files music and a total hit piece on one of our own. But as I'm going to show you here, it didn't quite turn out that way. And we're going to listen to the piece that Sky News done, and then we're going to get right into this with Luke and listen to the listeners out there. Having spoke to Luke for just half an hour before the show, this is going to be absolutely awesome. You do not want to go anywhere. Listen in to this.
Imagine this. Ebola has broken out in the UK. There's rioting in the streets and food is scarce. That's the scenario Luke Edwards is playing out. His YouTube video on how to survive an Ebola pandemic has received more than 15,000 hits.
I was bedded down for the night, decided to move on where I was staying, just didn't seem secure enough.
He's what's known as a prepper, a rapidly growing community in the UK who, as the name suggests, are prepared for anything from a natural disaster to the collapse of society.
You've got your fuel for your camping stove.
Luke has spent more than £2,000 on survival gear, including a gas mask and biohazard suits for himself and his wife. He says he wants to ensure they stand the best possible chance if the worst happens.
Whether it's a lack of trust, it's maybe a lack of faith in the ability of others. I'd rather have that faith in myself to be able to deal with the things that I need to keep myself in a relative amount of comfort, and for my wife as well. So.
And Luke is by no means alone. There are thousands of preppers across the UK, alert to all different kinds of catastrophe, whether it be flooding, a terrorist attack or disease. Public health officials...
Luke Edwards, who was recently on Sky News for a preparedness, survival type video, which we'll get into. Don't want to spoil too much of it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really, really looking forward to getting into this one, Marty. But before we get there, in true Kev Baker show tradition, welcome onto the show, the one and only whistler himself, the fans' favourite. Johnny, do us the honours and shout out the chat room.
Thanks very much, Kev. We've got 47 people in the chat just now, Kev, so thanks very much, everybody. We'll start with Naughty Boy, Angel Whisperism, Aussie Anzac, Bad Breakfast, Beer of Change, Cows and Nappies, Daft Libertas, Den Oldham, Marty, Fishtails, Flower Child, Harold 70, Ivy Nurse, myself and Kev, Kevty, Mad Martian, Mad Millie, Matt Freeman, Miss Susie Q, Nosboy, Nobody Icon, Stushy, Blondinator, Max, Osama Number, Ragnar, Jenny, Coctopus, Dr. Harry Wiener, Silverman, and a wad of an ons, Kev.
Well, a big shout out to Joe Joseph or Chris Geo in the chat, I would imagine. Possibly Popeye, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yes,
definitely one of them.
It's definitely the Coctopie gets the best name of the night in the chat. But as Marty was saying, we have got a very special guest tonight, recently featured on Sky News, no less. And I want to welcome onto the show Mr. Luke Edwards. Luke, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks, Kev.
Excellent stuff. Now, I was surprised and refreshed to see an article just recently on Sky News, the website I love to hate, and it was concentrating on, the headline read, Preppers in a Spin over Ebola Armageddon. Now, that could be potential game changers.
It could be anything, from natural disasters to, man-made or terrorist or whatever. You've got, just to name a few, overpopulation, resources running short. You've got asteroids, EMPs, extreme weather events, cyber attacks, polar shifts, computers becoming aware and being misused by rogue governments, pandemics, financial crises. I'm sure there's a few out there that I've missed as well.
I mean, even just down in England, not that long ago, we had those terrible floods. People on a local level definitely needed to be prepared for that, and we've seen how many people got caught out. Now, what's the one, I mean, they centred on Ebola. What kind of crisis do you think, if you had to put your money on one, what's the worst case scenario that you see coming right now?
Possibly, I wouldn't say the worst case scenario, but I see that maybe the most likely is just society. We're at the top of our game, have been for a couple of 100 years now. Britain and with its empire and the way America is, got its hand in everything. Well, you look back to Rome or, Egypt and all these other places where they were at the top of their game. I think like an ant's nest that builds up to a certain, amount of ants per hive, and then eventually it just can't sustain itself. It's gonna decline, and that would have a devastating effect on the majority of people, not everyone. Certainly, the working class and the likes of myself and yourselves would probably be put out by something like that, and just preparing just to have even a few months supply of food at home